have to do a little bit more welding on my car. I decided to do a little bit of practice welding and really get the welder tuned in. So I got a piece of tin here and a piece of my scrap metal I use for patching. And I made some adjustments to my welder here. I had to tighten up the tension on the wire a lot and loosen up the tension on the spool, and that got rid of the delay. And I've just been playing with the heat settings, see how hot I can get it before burning through, and I think I found a pretty happy medium. Now, I know the metal in my car isn't quite as thin as this tin, but it's also not as thick as this metal I use for patching, so I figured it'd be a good comparison. If I could weld onto this, I can weld onto any of the sheet metal on my car and produce decent welds. I did blow through several places, especially here close to the edge. There just wasn't enough metal there to dissipate the heat. Actually, welding these two together was the easiest part. Anywhere I was just welding on this thin tin, it really did try to blow through. No problems welding this thicker steel. It, on any setting, just welds that just fine. And there's some pretty decent penetration on it, so I think I'm happy with these settings. And now I'll show you what I've got going on. When I got this car many years ago, it was wrecked in the front. I never did have a welder. And this section here of the chassis, where the car had originally been towed out, was ripped off. It was peeled all the way back to here. I've been working on straightening this out a little bit, but as you can see, all these spot welds in here have been ripped out. Now, the access to get to there to re-spot weld it isn't that great, and since this is a tow hook, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get squeezed back together. I'm not going to re-weld the spot welds. I'm just going to put a few dots right along the seam here. Alrighty, I've got it ground down. Now, use my come along here. Close up that gap. At least get me a little bit closer. Alright. See, just a slight overlap here, so I'm not worried about doing the spot welds from the back side. I'm just going to tap some of these spots with the hammer, get them nice and close and flush, then we'll be ready to weld. Not perfect, but I do believe I've got the welder going a little bit better. I'm pretty sure that's going to hold. So once this gets cooled down, I'll wire brush over it. I'll release the come along, and I'll hit it with a little bit of paint so it won't rust. Alright, now for the reason why I've been working on this front bumper is I need to loosen the front bumper support, because I have a pretty wide gap here. With these cars, over time the front bumper cover has a tendency to sag, and this is how you fix it. Up here on both sides, let's see if I can get some light up in here. Got that bolt and that nut right up here, these two, to hold on the front bumper support bar. I found the easiest way to get rid of that gap, I've done this car several times, is to get it up on jack stands, or lift in this case. Loosen these this nut and this bolt on both sides, and then you can use a jack, a 4x4, nice big board. You can stick it up here to the underside of that bumper bar, jack it up and support it where you want it, and then tighten those bolts back down. So let's see if we can't just get that gap to disappear. Now, after I let the pressure off, it's going to sink a little bit, so I might have to try this a couple times. For right now, I'm leaving the hood closed. I'm going to jack it right up to it. Actually go a little past. Alright. That's tight. Let me get these bolts tightened down. I'll let down the jack. Bolts and nuts are tightened. It's time to let down the jack and see what we get. Alright. That is much, much better. It's much closer to where the line should be. It's really close here. This end is still a little wide. Right now I'm working on getting the bumper cover nice and fixed up, trying to get the body lines where they should be. This is nice and tight here now. This still has a considerable gap. Don't know how much I can do about that. And there's still a considerable gap here. And I think I'll have to correct these by adding supports and some brackets just to bring it back tighter. I'm betting the metal bracket that goes between the fender and the bumper cover is rusted out, so I may have to make a replacement for that. Oh. I've been working on restitching the tears in my bumper. I know this looks ugly now. I repaired these same tears, I don't know, last time painted about 8 or 9 years ago. So now I'm just doing it again. The last time I just used zip ties, and what actually caused it to fail again is the zip ties actually deteriorated on the inside where they weren't covered by body filler, which you can still see a little bit of it left here. It's like the Bondo hair with fiberglass in it. So I'm going to do the repair a little bit different this time. I've took my Dremel with a cone bit. I made a nice groove. A little drill bit, puncture some holes, and I've actually stitched this together with some steel wire. Try to keep it down in that groove. And I have used a few more zip ties. And on the splits that weren't quite as bad, I just used the zip ties. Something I did do this time that I didn't do before was actually put a hole right at the end of the split and rounded it out so it wouldn't continue. So this repair should work well. I've got some fiberglass mat and some resin, and I'm going to put the mat, not cloth, mat on both sides of this repair. before covering it with some more Bondo fiber and sanding it down smooth. And that should help keep it from cracking back. But what I really want to do is, once I get this straight, is add some metal supports to go along this edge and all along the lip here, just to keep it good and secured, so when something does hit it, it doesn't just crack and split all around here. That, and it'll help get this gap here to close up, being able to force this into shape. But yeah, there we go. Because this needs to be pulled in, so if I can get it shaped like that, get a nice metal support made that goes all the way around the bottom edge here, I think I'll be in good shape. I think I'll keep the body lines nice and tight, and it'll give me something to attach a new lip to, a lower lip, and possibly a front splitter later on. So that's all I'm going to get done with this today. I'll record this when I get around to doing it. Thanks for watching.